How's it going, guys? Alex here. Welcome back to another Dokkan Battle video, and today is the day before the release of STR Vegito, or the Transcended Ultra Rare at the very least. Well, the SSI that goes into the Transcended Ultra Rare. So I thought, why not compare him to the other Vegitos in the game? Obviously, he is still in his base form, which means that we can actually compare him to an extent, right? Obviously, when he Dokkans into an LR, it's going to be a completely different story, because he is supposedly going to be STR Vegito Blue. I don't see why he wouldn't be STR Vegito Blue, but there's a few people saying, how do you know he's going to Dokkan into Vegito Blue? Well, I just don't see why he wouldn't. It's obviously going to be STR Vegito Blue. That's the point. And about a few months ago, I actually went over the current Vegitos in the game. So if you haven't seen that initial video, go ahead and check it out. But I suppose I'm going over the order in this video anyway. But yeah, I hope you guys are having a great day as always. And if you do enjoy today's video, consider leaving a like and subscribing if you are new. And of course, the main purpose of this video is just to see how he compares to the other ones. So I'm not exactly going to be... The ranking doesn't necessarily matter that much for the others, just the STR Vegito in particular. But let's go ahead and get started with, well, technically the most recent one, because the STR one still hasn't been released yet. We have the Agility Vegito, and he was the World Tournament reward for the most recent World Tournament on Global, and obviously Japan had him before the one that they have now, obviously. So his leader skill gives 2 key to agility types, as well as a 50% health and attack boost. So that's not actually a bad leader skill. And when he Dokkans, that's probably going to go up to a 70% increase and 3 key. I want to say that, or maybe it's going to say the same percentage, but they are just going to add the defense on and maybe one additional key. So he's going to have a pretty damn good leader skill once he does get his eventual rebirth. But it's like, where are the rebirths for the World Tournament? Because we haven't seen a rebirth for the TEQ Ultimate Gohan. I definitely think he needs one because he's a pretty damn good unit. We have, trying to think of the other one, the STR Super Saiyan Goku. There are a few units in there that could be very good if they receive the rebirth. Causes supreme damage and gives a 20% attack boost to all of your allies. When first, okay, so this is where things go downhill for this card. When he is the first to attack, his defense goes up by 100%, and he also gives a 30% attack boost to your super allies. If this 100% wasn't required by having him in the first slot, it wouldn't be an issue like at all, because just having him in that first slot, but it basically makes you, or forces you, to have to put out one of your optimal units in that third slot, which means that they are going to be out of rotation for 3 turns, and it's just like, well, my optimal unit can probably tank better than this guy anyway. Obviously, you're most likely going to run on a Super Agility team either 2 Super Vegitos or 2 Super Saiyan 4 Vegitas, which is 3 tanks straight away. You maybe even want to use the new Super Saiyan 3 Trunks. He is a tank. There are just so many tanks for agility. You have so many options that it's just like, why are they adding more tanks to that agility type group? We get it, they can tank. And obviously, if you're using just the main units for that team, which you should probably have access to at this point. Obviously, I'm just spitballing here. I don't actually know if the majority of the players have that card in particular, but I would imagine that quite a few of you have Vegito, so obviously can obtain him with the blue stone and just through several different banners. But the point is, you're not going to be putting him in the first slot the majority of the time. And obviously, he gives that 30% attack boost as well. When you're on the first slot, if I'm not mistaken, they don't necessarily specify here. So when first to attack, defense up by 100%, and super type allies attack by 30%. I don't know if that's like 2 different things, because I'm pretty sure if it was 2 different things. I'm not too certain if that's 2 different things, because I'm pretty certain that if it was, they would probably separate that to specify in particular what it actually means. But overall, kind of a disappointing passive, admittedly. I think he could have, I mean, it's not bad by any means. It definitely does have potential. They could get rid of that restriction. But if they give him a rebirth, I'm hoping that it doesn't go up to, like, defense up by 120% or 150%, and, you know, just keep that restriction. Get rid of that restriction, and he is going to be a very good unit. Keeping in that first slot, even though that's not where the majority of the attacks are going to be situated. But I'm curious to see what they do with the card for sure. Now, moving on to the link set, Saiyan Warrior Race, the Saiyan Lineage, Prepare for Battle, Power Stone by God, Fused Fighter, and Brainiac. So just pretty much the standard links for an agility type of unit. Just pretty much the standard links for a base Vegito. And obviously, once he Dokkans into a Transcended Ultra Rare, he is going to be getting the Rebirth link, which he is going to share with Margin Vegeta. So he does have a few good things about him. Well, potential things in the future about him, but his main key links are, of course, Prepare for Battle and Fused Fighter. Fused Fighter, somewhat common on an agility team. Obviously, you have Super Vegito that has it, and maybe the Super Saiyan Gotenks. There are a few units here and there that you can use, but the majority of the time you aren't going to. Super Vegito is the main one, of course. Prepare for Battle, shared by pretty much every single unit on a Super Agility team. And then when it comes to his attack links, that is definitely where he isn't necessarily that great. But obviously, that's not the point of the card. The point of the card is to be able to tank, so it doesn't matter that much. But it does kind of like take away from some of your other units. For example, if you have someone like Super Vegito, and then you have the Vegito next to him, it's like, well, you're not activating the majority of my attack links like Fierce Battle and Super Saiyan. But then again, you may have a unit in the last slot that is going to activate those links. So it kind of balances balances itself out, but I haven't personally used them, so this is just what I personally think of the card, just seeing what it can do. But let me know in the comment section if you think otherwise. And of course, this 12 key multiplier is 140%, which is pretty solid. And again, that can still go up or stay the exact same. He does have a farmable super attack, to be fair, as well as the other Vegitos. Apart from global at the moment, obviously we still have to wait for that super Vegito stage for him, or just the other Vegitos in general, to get the farmable super attack. And the interesting thing about that is that the Vegito that they brought out is actually an STR type, so it's like, it kind of coincides with the LR Vegito that we are obviously going to get, which is a bit of an interesting one. I'm surprised they didn't make him physical, and to me that suggests that this STR Vegito is going to stay global exclusive for quite a while. I mean, we still don't know anything about what they're going to do with LR Vegito, but if he stays global exclusive, that is going to be absolutely insane, and I would imagine that is going to cause a massive uproar in the Japanese community. But I'm definitely curious to see what happens down the road. But the fact that they released an STR Vegito not that long before they released LR Vegito on global, is just like, okay, that's a bit suspicious. You could have made him physical to give the Japanese players a bit of hope, but no, you're being conspicuous here. But yeah, overall, I think I'm just going to be doing this in this order. So he is definitely going to be last. Honestly, I just personally don't think he is that great. He doesn't provide too much, especially to agility. If it was for physical, I would kind of understand, but the fact that they made him agility is just like, okay, yeah, you had your chance, Bandai, you had your chance. Now, this is definitely where things start to get a little bit more interesting, and it's just like, do you put the support unit above the units that can hit hard, or do you prioritize the harder hitting units? But personally, in the first slot, I am going to be putting the in Vegito. He gives a 30% health and attack boost to all types, so his leader skill isn't necessarily that great, and unless he somehow turns into a legendary rare, which I doubt, his leader skill isn't going to improve. He causes supreme damage to the enemy, and he gives a 25% attack boost to all allies for 1 turn, so very similar to the agility Vegito, but he does give that additional 5%. And now this is where things get a little bit interesting. So he does have a 12 key multiplier of 145%, which I believe is the best 12 key multiplier here. And then he gets a 12% attack increase per orb obtained. So it's not in-type orbs, it's just per any orb obtained. Now, here's the thing. If you were to pair him up with someone like Rage Trunks, his damage output is definitely a lot higher than the majority of the other Vegitos, but the thing is, if you don't pair him with a unit like Trunks, he is definitely not going to be hitting as hard as he would with that particular partnership. But then again, if you have someone like LR Gohan on your team, you're definitely not going to be prioritizing Vegito, so there are certain situations where his damage output can be considerably higher than the other units, but at the same time, it's just like, well, you do need to be in this particular scenario, and it doesn't exactly work that well if you don't have the Rage Trunks, and if you have an LR Gohan, you're obviously going to prioritize the LR Gohan. So you could potentially try to focus on him with the Rage Trunks, but even then, it's just not a unit that you're going to be having in your main slots the majority of the time, because if you're running a double Gogeta lead, you're obviously going to be keeping both Gogetas in rotation, Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, Rage Trunks. Obviously, I have LR Gohan as well, potentially, but I'm just trying to be a bit realistic here, because obviously the majority of the players don't have LR Gohan. So let's just say you have those main 4. Those are the ones that you're going to be keeping in rotation the majority of the time. But if you don't have the main 4, then you may consider putting Vegito in there, but even then, there are still better options. So, again, going back to just the Vegitos in general, his damage output definitely is extremely high because of that 12 key per orb obtained, and he has one of the best 12 key multipliers in the game. But the lack of any real attack links apart from Fist Battle definitely does drag him down slightly in comparison to some of the other units that have Super Saiyan and such. But again, like I said multiple times, his damage output is super high. But if we move on to the link skills, Saiyan, Warrior Race, Brainiacs, Prepare for Battle, Power Bestowed by God, Feast Fighter, and Fierce Battle, of course. Fierce Battle is going to be his main attack link, and then we have the Prepare for Battle and Feast Fighter link, which are going to be his main attack links, his main key links. And it's not so much of an issue, because obviously if you haven't paired up with a unit like Rage Trunks, he is going to be super attacking anyway because of the amount of orbs that he is going to be collecting. But even then, okay, I legit just thought of this. Like, talking about Rage Trunks and such, let's say you don't have LR Gohan at all. There is absolutely no reason for you to prioritize the Vegito over Rage Trunks anyway, because Rage Trunks is just naturally going to hit harder anyway. It's like, okay, why am I giving orbs to my weaker Vegito when I could just give it to my Rage Trunks instead, who is going to hit harder? He has a better link set, and he obviously just has a higher damage output, so there's absolutely no need for me to give the orbs to the end Vegito, because I have my Rage Trunks, who's going to hit significantly harder, especially when I give him orbs. But you know what, let's put the Rage Trunks aside, and let's put the LR Gohan aside. What if you were to use an orb changer like the Super Saiyan Goku Rebirth? That could work a bit better, because you don't obviously want to prioritize the orbs for the end Super Saiyan Goku, and Vegito is definitely going to be benefiting from that, but the Goku doesn't have the Fierce Battle Link, so it's like, oh, okay, so Vegito is missing out 15% unless you have another unit in the rotation that obviously gives the Fierce Battle Link. So there are multiple scenarios where his damage output can deviate massively, so I think that's one of the reasons why I did keep him in third place, despite having a pretty high attack stat and obviously a great 12 key multiplier. And yeah, just nuking, not a big fan of it, and obviously if you don't have an orb changer at all, his damage output is going to be just yikes. Yeah, just yikes. Now, this is definitely where things get a little interesting, because obviously you have the STR Vegito that is a hard-hitting unit, and then you have the TEQ one. He has a bit of a support unit. Well, it's not a bit. He has a support unit. So I'm not going to, like, necessarily give my opinion on which one is better just yet, but I'm going to start with the TEQ Vegito. So he gives a 30% health and attack boost to all types, causes supreme damage, gives a 25% attack boost to all of your allies for one turn, and then with his passive, he gives a 30% attack and defensive boost to all of your allies. So overall, he could be giving a 55% attack boost to all of your allies, which obviously is pretty damn good, and of course he has a defense as well, which doesn't necessarily matter that much, but obviously it does make a bit of a difference. And if we move on to the link skills, Saiyan, Warrior Race, the Saiyan lineage, Prepare for Battle, Power Slow by God, Fuse Fighter, Supreme Power, and Fierce Battle. So the one link that I believe he has over the previous two is the Supreme Power link, which again isn't going to be active that frequently, but it's still there. Of course, his main attack link is going to be Fierce Battle. He has a 12 key multiplier of a 145%. Main key links, of course, Prepare for Battle and Fuse Fighter. So he does have, like, the best 12 key multiplier here alongside the N-Type. But again, the biggest difference out of all of these units, essentially, is that he's just a support unit that gives the boost to your allies. He doesn't necessarily provide that much offensively, but when it comes to the passive and what he provides with the super attack mechanic, he is going to be pretty damn good. Obviously, if you want to make the most of that super attack mechanic, you need to put him in the first slot the majority of the time, just so you give the boost to your other two units in the rotation. So because of that reason, you may not do that frequently. So obviously he is going to be a unit that is in the third slot the majority of the time. But what he provides in terms of the attack increases to certain units is honestly, like, just insane. If you go over to my 100% STR Super Saiyan God Goku showcase, I go over quite a few times why support units can give such a significant increase, and without a support unit in play, my Super Saiyan God Goku's attack stat was hanging around 700 to 800k, but with a support unit in play, that would easily go up by 200k, and that was a 30% attack increase from a support unit. So it just shows you the power of support units. But then STR Vegito, who obviously is a Transcendent Ultra Rare as well, and he currently doesn't have the full arc because for some reason they are still working on him after like 5 or 6 months, but he does have a 12 key multiplier of 140%, which is on par with the agility one if I'm not mistaken, but again, that can still go up when he dokens into an LR. But for this video in particular, we are talking about the Transcendent Ultra Rare version, of course. So he gives a 40% stat boost to super types as well as 2 keys. So by far, he has the best leader skill out of the bunch here, just straight away. So that is one thing that he has over the others. Raises attack and defense and causes supreme damage. Okay, so this is another factor that will allow him to hit harder than the N-Type primarily. Obviously, the Tech type and agility types aren't made for that. So the fact that he does raise his own attack and defense is obviously a good thing. And I believe that raises attack and defense is around 50%, and it could be less, because I believe Gogeta has greatly raises attack and defense, which is 50%. So this is maybe going to be half of that, maybe 30-40%. I don't have the exact numbers, but it's around 25% at the very least. And with his passive, he gives a 60% attack and defensive boost to himself, and raises key up by 8. The less health remaining, the greater the key boost. So let's say you're at like 20% health, you're obviously going to be getting around 8 key. It should make sense, right? And if we move on to the link skills, Saiyan, Warrior Race, Brainiacs, Power Slow by God, Prepare for Battle, Feast Fighter, and Shattering the Limit. Obviously the exact same link set as the other Vegitos. The difference is that he does not have Supreme Power like the Agility and N-Type, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, I went over his Tolkien multiplier, which is 140%. And I find it kind of funny how they give the TEQ Vegito one of the better 12 multipliers, but he isn't going to hit that hard anyway, so it's like, oh, okay, makes sense. So Feast Fighter and Prepare for Battle, and of course Shattering the Limit, which is a very interesting link set for an STR team in particular. Obviously, you do have Super Saiyan 4 Goku and just the majority of the other units in that team with Prepare for Battle, but when it comes to the Fuse Fighter link, it's not that common for that team unless you're running STR Goten for whatever reason. Shattering the Limit, again, another link that isn't necessarily so common, but it just doesn't matter because he already gives himself the key, and he's obviously providing keys to the units around him because of that prepared for battle link. And he doesn't have fierce battle, which is a bit of a shame because of course that would give him an additional 15% to his attack. So that is one thing that the N type has over the STR type, but I still think that the STR type does have the edge just because he can consistently give himself the 60% attack and defensive increase, and on top of that he also raises his own attack with the super attack mechanic, and obviously he does have a higher attack stat as well. There are a few things that come into play. I definitely think that they are slightly even when it comes to attack in certain situations. For example, if you were to use the in Vegito, like I mentioned earlier, with the Rage Trunks, I mean, you can easily see which one has more damage potential there, but it's just such an unrealistic scenario that's just like, okay, I'm definitely going to give it to Vegito. He raises his own defense as well, better leader skill, which is obviously going to take a part in a video like this. But overall, honestly, it's a bit of a tough one between the TEQ and STR one. They just have, they both have incredible things about them. Obviously, STR Vegito wins when it definitely comes to the leader skill department. When it comes to the super attack, I would give it to the STR Vegito as well. Link set, obviously, it's going to be the same. And when it comes to the passive, again, it just depends on what you personally prefer. But if I had to pick a winner out of these two, just based off what we know, it's honestly a very tough one, because I'm thinking about the STR Vegito and I'm like, well, there's like 100 other units in the game. Obviously, that's just an over-exaggeration, but there are a ton of other units in the game that can do what he does, but better as a Transcended Ultra Rare. But then you have the TEQ Vegito. There aren't that many TEQ-type units, apart from, you know, Tien and such, that can provide the support that he does. So it definitely is a bit of a tough one. Ultimately, it just depends on what you prefer. But I think this is going to be a 1A, 1B situation where they are essentially in the same spot, but it just depends on what you personally prefer. So I think I am going to do that. Honestly, I think I'm going to just make them tied. And I do love both Vegitos, don't get me wrong, but there are just certain things about the STR one that are slightly better than the TEQ Vegito. And obviously, once he Dokkans into a Transcended Ultra Rare, or LR rather, he is definitely going to be better than the TEQ one. But for now, I'm just looking at his type group in particular, and it's like, well, he doesn't necessarily provide anything at the moment that a few of the other units, you know, don't. Because he's essentially at the moment equivalent to quite a few of the other units that are in, you know, that STR type as well. Whereas the Vegito, it's kind of more of a unique unit in a sense when it comes to his type of, well, his group type, because there aren't that many units that do that. So I definitely think it's a close one. But if I was to rank them without keeping in mind just the units in those particular types, I think STR Vegito would edge it, just about. He provides more with the leader skill. He's going to hit harder. That 25% that the TEQ Vegito provides with a super attack, honestly, isn't that significant. They both have the exact same leader, or link set, pardon me. But when it comes to the passives, that is the deciding factor. But I definitely think that the STR Vegito would edge it in that situation. But if you are taking into account the units in those particular types, I think it's a draw. But again, let me know. It's just my opinion. And hope you guys did enjoy the video as always. And if you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. I hope you guys have a wonderful day as always. And I will see you all in the next one.